Hello, welcome to Illinois Stories. I'm Mark McDonald in Dallas City, right on the Mississippi River, right on the border of Hancock and Henderson County, in front of a building affectionately known as the Castle. The Louis Berg home was built here, 1890 or so, and it's gone through a number of hands. It's been in the same hands now, Steve Roberts, for about 6 years.
Yes.
And this is a real eye-popper. When people drive along 3rd Street here in Dallas City, they must wonder, what in the world is that? Are you proud?
Yes, I am, because it's very shocker to people just driving by here that here's a castle in the middle of this small Mississippi river town.
Yeah,
It's fun, actually.
Yeah. We're going to, with your permission, go through and see what you've done in the 6 years since you've owned it. But how did you come by this building?
I came by here on the way to a job. I'm a retired crane operator, and I was working up here in this local on a bridge job, and I seen a for sale sign, and I'd watched this building for years. And I love old buildings. Number two, it was 75 miles closer to VA Hospital, who does all my medical work. Number three, I like to fish, and there's the Mississippi River. And that's the 3 reasons. I never knew a soul in Dallas City. Not one soul. But I've made a lot of friends and wonderful people here.
Well, it's in good condition. As you told me earlier, I think you haven't had to do a whole lot to the outside. But let's walk a little closer, because you did some repair work here that we can see these round steps. Were they falling apart?
They were originally stone, and they were just, as you can see, the water gets and checks and breaks the stone by nature. You can see it needs to be retucked there.
Yeah.
These steps were a square affair. I had to take 2 sections of pavement sidewalk out, which you can see, to get the grade to it. And I engineered these round steps, basically because it offsets the round turret over here.
Okay.
And everybody says it's one of the, it just looks like they've already been here, even though you can see they're new.
Yeah.
I did that, and the rest of it is in the state of restoration. I've got a lot of work to do on it yet on this side. The back side is basically done, and I had a roof put on it last year, and the roof was really bad.
Boy, when he built it, though, he built it, didn't he? It's a solid son of a gun.
It's been here since 1890, and it's went through who knows how many countless thunderstorms. And with millions of trains that went by, which naturally shake the ground. It's built on bedrock, and so you get the shaking. You can feel it inside. So it's amazing that it's lasted. To me, it's just amazing it's lasted this long. But it's basically, as you can see, the tuck pointing in it is a lot of it's original. And you can see that it needs some repair, and I will get there one of these days.
Will you take us inside?
Sure.
Okay,
you bet.
let's go take a look.
Come on in. Come on in, Mark.
Steve, this is fantastic. Now, that's a big door, a big quiet door.
Isn't that amazing? Almost 130 years, this door probably weighs 500 pounds. One of the things that really amazes me about this home is that none of the doors squeak in this home. They're silent.
Let me try that again.
Yeah, and now watch how it shuts.
I've got a microphone
It's just
on.
amazing that the workmanship in those days.
My shoe squeaked, but not that.
Because I washed the floors today.
This is really a gift, and it's sort of a mixed blessing. The woodwork in this house is just astounding, and you can see as you look at the banister behind you. Unfortunately, a lot of it got painted in the intervening years, but they didn't touch this hall, did they?
Thank
They didn't
God.
paint the woodwork in this hall. It's gorgeous. What are we looking at? What kind of wood do we see here?
This is polished oak that reputedly came from this county and Henderson County and Hancock both. And they say that one fellow did all the furniture carving and all this oak here, the trim in this house, which is amazement.
It is ornate. Just look above. Just look above there. It's beautiful. Now you made mention of this to me too, that what we're looking at here, this is just not any piece of oak, is it?
No, that's what I didn't know that till recently. And the Sullivan Boys auctioneers sell a lot of premium furniture. They're from Hamilton and they're friends of mine. And Senator Sullivan, by the way, is one of the brothers.
Yeah.
And I didn't know what quarter sawn oak was. And he told me, he says, "Steve, you have a wonderful selection of quarter sawn oak in this home." And I said, "What's that?" And he says, "It takes a lot of tree to make quarter sawn oak," meaning they have to cut diagonally to get this pattern. Well, you see this is straight grain, and they mix it up in this house. You'll see pieces of this quarter sawn in all the doors and all the panels. And all I know is the Sullivan Boys, when they offer an antique for sale at their auctions, they mention it's got quarter sawn oak in it. So I was quite glad to hear that I had some quarter sawn oak.
Look at this window up here. That's just lovely. You've still got some of those originals, don't you?
It's reputed to be Tiffany, but they say the only people who can identify Tiffany glass are experts unless you take it out and they say that Tiffany could be written on the edge. That's what I know.
Yeah.
I've been more interested in fixing it up than restoring it than the history of it.
Yeah, yeah. But even if it's not Tiffany, it is so
No, it's beautiful. It's a beautiful window.
Yeah. We're going to go up those stairs a little later, but let's go into the dining room first. I wanted to stay down here because, again, the woodwork in here, you know, the paneling and the molding and the around the windows, the trim around the windows is just beautiful. And again, you're so lucky this didn't get painted in all those
Right.
years that between the times the Bergs and the Blacks owned it and the time you took over. And what did you wallpaper the ceiling?
No, well, yes, the wallpaper was on there. That's textured wallpaper to represent pressed steel. It's a good way to put up pressed steel, not have to put the original thing. But I painted it gold, and it's needing another paint. And behind this wallpaper here, Mark, this wallpaper is reputed to be hand painted murals in this room. I don't know. I'm going to strip it someday. I'm going to try.
You're going to find out.
And well, I have to get somebody that knows how to do that sort of thing.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want to ruin it
Not
if there's some
damage it,
murals
yeah.
that could be restored. So I'm planning on doing that.
Yeah.
And
You know, these are interesting. These are these drape holders, or what are we looking at up here?
this is something I'm just assuming from people who've told me. In those days, I don't think they were concerned with like covering a window as we are today with drapes. These were more decorative. Those things will extend out a little bit, but not reach the middle. And I assume they just draped drapes down and had sashes holding them back down here. They're stamped. I've got some in the box. It's come from other parts of this house. They're stamped 1864. So apparently, since this house was built around 1890, I would say that they had abundance of them on hand to, to sell homeowners. But they're cast iron, and that's kind of nice.
That is a nice touch, a real nice touch. Now, I repeatedly mentioned how fortunate you were not to have the woodwork painted in some of those rooms. Here's an example of where, we think people made a mistake when they painted that beautiful oak woodwork, don't we?
Yes, it would have been. There's a lot of work for me to strip this, but I'm going to. This is my first job at stripping in this room. I'm going to do this winter. I hope I get it done this winter.
Original fireplace
Yes,
here.
yes.
These would have been better mantle pieces than what we see here.
I don't think they're original.
Somebody must have taken the mantles.
Yeah, I don't think they're original.
And this parlor would be the first room that you would probably enter if you were a guest, I would assume. You'd be led into here. And again, this is a nice example of the woodwork that's still original. And again, a stained glass window in here. Very nice. Now these fireplaces, of course, they were heating with coal or wood, I guess, back then.
There's two chimneys that have been taken down below the roof line. There's a main chimney that I use. I got two wood stoves in the basement to offset the heating, expense of this home. These were original coal or wood fireplaces, and the chimney has been taken down below the roof line. They did a lot of that in those days because the bricks would get rotten and they just take them down. And this electric fireplace is the only one I've ever seen like it. I'm sure people that's in the antique business have, but I would say that's the first generation of electric fireplaces. And it's got three thimbles that glow. You have 1, 2, or 3 on, and it works. And it'll heat this room quite nicely. But that's been put in there. This thing just sets in the original fireplace opening. And that's just a way to get away from the period of fireplaces everywhere.
Yep.
There's also another one upstairs just like it on the same chimney upstairs above this in the bedroom.
Well, Glenn Smith, you've done a lot of work collecting photographs and articles from newspapers that go clear back through Dallas City history. And this is certainly one of the big points of Dallas City history, isn't it? There's Lewisburg, his home, and his factory, his company, isn't it?
Yes, sir. And the house itself has quite a lot of history.
Yeah. This is a sample here of what you've put together. Pages and pages and pages of postcards and articles and photographs and really, really interesting stuff for anybody who's interested in this part of the state. Tell me a little bit about what did you learn about Lewisburg when you started looking into this?
Mr. Berg, from what I've read, he was a very instrumental person in this town. He built the carriage factory, of course, and the automobile factory. He was owner in the bank. He was instrumental in building the high school. It's sort of modeled after this home. They're very unique. They're, as far as I'm concerned, among some of the most unique buildings in the state of Illinois. He seemed to be a generous person from all the articles that I had read, and he really was a boon to the community.
Yeah. Hired a lot of people.
Yes, sir.
Economic development was spurred because of him. Now, he came from Iowa, didn't he?
Yes, sir.
What was he doing in Iowa?
They had a carriage company over in Iowa, in Farmington, I believe it was, and then they came here.
Built the company and the house at about the same time.
Yes, the house was in 1890, and the 3 factories was in 1891.
And had a fairly large family, and they blossomed. Now, do you know anything about him, how he died?
No, I really don't. Well, it's in the book there, but I don't. I just researched up to a point on the house itself, and when the Bergs was here, and then the previous owners up until present, because the house itself has quite a history. And if it weren't for Mr. Berg, there would be no history.
This house, it's a real eye popper. I mean, when you're driving through Dallas City, you can't help but stop and look at it. It's kind of a gift, isn't it, to the city?
Yes, sir. It's very unique.
Yeah.
Very unique.
And the Stones, are they local?
Yes, sir. They came from across the street here, kind of catty-cornered, the stone for it and for the schoolhouse. It was semi-modeled after this.
Yeah.
building.
So there was a local quarry.
Yes, sir.
Interesting. Well, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Well, I've been wanting to climb these stairs since we came in the front door, Steve. They're really, really nice.
Well, apparently the
Fit for a
Queen of
king.
England has been
Fit for a
here.
king, isn't it?
Yes.
This would have been, if we go in here, this is probably would have been the Berg's master bedroom.
I agree with that, and I don't really know, but I think it is.
Yeah.
This was head of the stairway,
Yeah. Yeah.
and it would have been, I would assume the size of it would have been probably the owner of the house and his wife would have lived in this room.
And we got to mention too that this is a work in progress.
Work in progress.
You're,
I
you're
hope-
taking off paint. You're fixing water damage. You're still doing things, and you still have a lot of work to do on this room yet, don't you?
I like to tell people if I live long enough, I'll be able to strip all the paint off of it. If I live long enough,
Yeah.
and that, there's some truth in that.
Well, you know what?
It'll take a long time.
It's very time consuming. You know that
Yeah.
it doesn't take as long to paint as it does to get that paint off there, does
Absolutely.
it? I want to take a look at this radiator over here. This is really priceless. You know, we were talking. Well, do you think this was the original thing? And you know what? If they had artwork in their metal radiators, I would suspect that this is probably was here when the Bergs lived here.
Yes, Mark, because they tell me, this is another rumor, I think it'd be substantiated, that one of the owners later on in life took a fireplace out of one of the other bedrooms we're going to, and it had angels in the woodwork on the fireplace.
okay.
So I would assume
Yeah.
that was part of the original,
There was
because
a
it was
theme,
all,
yeah.
I think this man was a very religious, deep-thinking man that was this Mr. Berg. I would like to have met him.
Yeah.
And I think he was, into angels and,
Yeah.
and he's a religious man.
And again, we see this is a fireplace that's the twin to the one we saw downstairs with
just
the
a different
electric
color.
the electric
one downstairs
insert.
was silver,
Yeah.
this was black.
Yeah.
Their thimble, and this one works too.
Isn't that nice?
They just replaced the coal and wood, all the wood and the mess and everything in later years with electric fireplace.
Well, let's take a look at the room now. The rooms that actually you want the bedrooms to look like the one you finished. Down here, you finished the hall. You got the painting and everything done in the hall here, and then you've actually got one of your bedrooms in the condition you want to have them all in at some point. And this is your bedroom, I guess. the
This
master
is where I sleep, and I put when I have company, this is where I put my company for now. Will be a example of what these rooms will look like when I get done. There'll be 5 bedrooms.
Yep.
3 big bedrooms and 2 smaller ones. And this is an example of what one will look like in the future, whatever the future might be. I hope
Whatever the
next,
future holds.
I hope next year.
Yeah. Well, Louis Berg was a phenomenal man. He made carriages, made a lot of money making carriages too.
Right.
And he made automobiles.
Yes.
And this Louis Berg automobile is 100 years old this year.
Yes, it is.
And it's in your possession. Your father bought it and restored it.
Yes.
And it's the only Berg car left in existence. Is that right?
As far as we know, we've mentioned it enough throughout the years that no one has really proved us wrong.
And you show the car a lot, so it's had some exposure. If there were any other Berg automobiles around, they would have been made aware that you were claiming this to be the only one, and they would have come forth, wouldn't they?
In past years, we used to take it down to the Secretary of State's car show at Springfield, out on the Muni Opry, and at one time they used to have 2 shows that weekend, one in Springfield, then we traveled to Jacksonville. So we did that quite a few years. We show it at Mount Pleasant, Iowa for the Old Thrashers. We've had it at Galesburg, we've had it at Macomb. Oh, it's been to quite a few shows.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
And it's won a few trophies,
Yeah, it's
too.
found a few. I bet you're really proud of it, aren't you?
I am.
Your dad, as I mentioned, your dad restored it. What was his name?
Lorne Utzinger.
Lauren Utzinger. He restored this, but when he got started, he didn't have much to start with, did he?
Very little. It was some of the brass pieces had been kept in the barn. The chassis and things had rotted. The hood had a bullet hole through it, and it was up to through 7 years that they finally got all the pieces from the farm. One of the levers that's awful pockmarked, but still works, was found out in the pasture. Somebody walking along scuffed it, saw something shiny, and they dug it up, and there it was, a
I'll
lever.
be darned. So not very many people would have even been aware of what it was. It was just sitting out in an old farm field, just rusting and
Right.
half buried, wasn't it? But okay, we'll wait for that train to go by here real quick because we may have trouble hearing. While that train's going by, I'm going to ask you to open the hood for us.
Okay.
Would you do that?
Yes. You'll need to be on that side.
Okay. All right.
Now, you'll need to poke in the middle where
Okay,
the
here.
bracket is.
All right.
And then
Did I do
catch
it
it.
right? Okay.
Yes.
Okay, I'll let it down real carefully.
Okay.
Okay. What are we looking at?
The Rutenberg motor.
Uh-huh. Can you point anything out to us that's of interest here?
Well, can you shoot
Here.
over there, or we can take the top off? There's twin spark plugs on each one of these cylinders.
Oh yeah. So it's a 4-cylinder
It's a 4-cylinder.
with
Yes, it
twin
is.
spark plugs on the. So was that unusual? Do you have any idea? Was that unusual at the time?
Well, it could have been. I don't remember
Yeah.
seeing others.
This baby run?
It did when my father was still with us.
And he got it. What year did he get
He
it?
died. Oh, he got it in 1955.
55. He spent several years,
Oh
didn't
yes,
he,
it
fixing
wasn't
it up?
until about 1967 to 69 that we started showing it like in Mount Pleasant and everything.
Yeah.
But it had been in our Dallas City Festival parade several times, whether it was
Yeah.
on a flatbed trailer being pulled, and then a few years in it would be on its own power, and so people kind of have watched the restoration of it.
Yeah. Would you climb up in behind the driver's seat there for me?
Alrighty.
I want to ask you a couple questions about that. That's pretty tight, isn't it?
Yes,
There's not much room there.
No, I don't know how he
Now-
got under there.
This thing will run. It's just that you don't really like to put it through that, do you?
Right. It
Yeah.
hasn't been run for quite a few years. We keep it turned over so we make sure that the motor is not locked like they talk about. Because if you get a locked motor, well, then you really have some problems.
Yeah. And tell us what the controls are here.
Okay, if nobody realizes, this is a right-hand drive automobile, where most every other one had ended up being left-hand drive. It was also a stick shift, and this is your brake, and this is your stick shift. We're in neutral, but it has reverse for second and third. Here we have what he usually started with it. One is your spark gas or your advance, so that when you started it and it started going, then you would adjust these to keep it going.
Okay.
Of course, you had your foot feed.
Okay, and that's this button-like
think
thing
so.
down here, right? Okay.
And one of these is your brake and possibly reverse. At least my Model T is that way.
Okay.
So, and you have your speedometer is here, and it said that it could go maybe as fast as 60. Over in-
Really?
well,
Wow.
we never had it that
No.
fast. And in the middle is your magneto with a battery in it. So he usually started on the mag and then flipped it over
I see.
to the battery, or vice versa. Started on the
It's
battery, switched to the
beautiful.
mag.
It is beautiful.
Yes.
I'm holding here a nameplate, I guess is what this is.
Yes.
And now, is this the original plate
As
off
far
the
as
car?
I know, that's the original Jimmy Berg one of the relatives still had that in his possession at the time he passed away. And through an auction in town of his effects, then we happened to acquire it.
Yeah.
But earlier, Jimmy Berg had loaned it to Dad so that he could make a copy, and that's what's on the front of the Berg. He made it out of solid brass. He cut it out, and it's as close to the original as possible.
That's great. So you still have the original, but you have a nice replica one
Oh,
right on the
yes.
car. This
Yes.
is beautiful. Thanks for showing it to us.
You're welcome. Did you need to know what anything like the carbide generator?
I
or
you know what?
anything?
I think we'll just take one last look at this beautiful thing and just, I think that'll do it for us, okay?
Oh, thank you.
Ruth Higgins, we mentioned in the program earlier that there was another building, another castle in town. And we're standing in front of the old Dallas City High School. And unfortunately, a building with a storied history like this building has will never be a school again, will it?
Unfortunately, no, I'm afraid it will not be.
Yeah,
Too much work on the inside needs to be done, as you can see on the outside too.
yeah.
As you can see, it's boarded up. We can't even go in and tour it as of now.
Yeah, and it's
Due to
owned
the
by somebody
condition.
that doesn't live here.
Yes,
They're-
an individual from Florida bought it just recently, earlier in this year.
Yeah.
And I have,
You've got an interesting history with this because you taught here for what,
yes,
30
I
some
began
years?
in January 1969 and taught for 32 years here at High School
Wow.
Business. So
Wow.
I have a very strong connection to the school
Yeah.
as well as the community also.
Yeah, and being mayor, you know, you always want to see the best for everything.
That's correct.
But unfortunately, this remnant of a time in Dallas City history is probably going to get torn down.
It probably is. I don't have any idea what this gentleman's plans are, but he does, I'm quite certain, probably have the finances or the revenue to do what work needs to be done. And then when you look at a building like this, you think, okay, what's going to happen? It's probably going to end up at some point back in the city's hands, and then it's going to have to be torn
Yeah,
down and
yeah.
becomes a real cost factor.
We,
But
we mentioned too the quarry,
Yes.
which was in town here. That the stones were mined at the quarry as well as the Berg House.
right,
I
there was
guess.
one here, I think at the edge of town was in existence at the time, and then there was what they call the Snake Den Quarry, which is out here between Dallas City and Nyota, what we call Happy Hollow, down in the hills.
Yeah.
But a lot of the stone came from there also.
Yeah.
And
You
it
know,
was-
what do you think the connection is between the resemblance that this and the Berg House have?
I think very close resemblance. I think when Mr. Berg came here and began building his own home, I think at the same time they were talking about trying to develop a school, and I think he had a great deal of influence in the type of building that was going to be built,
Yeah.
because he too was lonesome for his home country of Germany. So I
Ah.
think there's very, very strong connection.
Yeah.
And they say a lot of the labor and the people working was local labor, but there was a lot of German ancestry involved in all of the people helping build too. So obviously at the beginning of this community, it must have been settled greatly by Germans.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for sharing.
You are very welcome.
It's very
It's a
interesting.
pleasure to share it. It's a shame that it's in the condition it is, but if there's someone out there wanting to do something, we would certainly jump on it. But
It's something.
I've never seen another one like it in all my travels around schools in the state of Illinois.
The Dallas City Castle will be known as the Blackburg in honor of two leading families who lived in this residence. The Blackburg Guest House is scheduled to open next year. With another Illinois story in Dallas City, I'm Mark McDonald. Thanks for watching.
For a DVD copy of this episode of Illinois Stories, send 1995 to Network Knowledge, P.O. Box 6248, Springfield, Illinois 62708. Be sure to include the program name, broadcast date, and topic. You may also order with your credit card by calling 800-232-3605 or by using our secure server by going online to networkknowledge.tv.